Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. It's Kim here, and today is another Sunday tutorial because I couldn't make it here again yesterday because I went strawberry picking, and then I came home and cleaned strawberries and froze them and got some ready for making pies later on this week, and just was busy all day long. We went out for a nice drive. We went for ice cream. It was a beautiful day. For those of you in the United States, I want to wish you a happy Independence Day because it is July 4th today. I hope you're having a fun day and either enjoying the festivities or watching my video. So I'm going on to making another new flower today, and this is kind of a millinery style of flower. It's flowers that you would have used to adorn hats or clothing, but I find that I use a lot of these flowers in my journals on the covers. So I thought this flower would be a fun flower to show you. Now, the millinery flowers, there's so many different styles to make, and I can't even begin to scratch the surface of how many different segments we can do with this and that we will do with this. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So be on the lookout for different kinds of fabric that you can use. Lots of velvets, lots of satins. And you know, it's not like you have to buy a yard of anything. You can buy a quarter yard, or you can look for a little girl's dress that has satin on it, or a little girl's dress made out of velvet. There are so many different ways to source materials without spending a lot of money. And just to give you an idea, the flowers that we're going to be making today, I call them my thumbnail flower, and you'll see why in a few minutes. This is just pieces of upholstery fabric. So I have this cream color here, and it's still got the paper labels on there, and I'm going to talk about those in a second. I've got this piece here. It's kind of it feels velvety on the top, like it's like a brushed fabric. I'm sure it had a label saying what it was, but I took it off. But it's not really velvet. But I like to work with a little bit stiffer materials because then the flowers keep their shape nicer. This came out of the same pile as this one. And these are just colors that I'm working with. If you've been following my friendship challenge, the friendship journal that Kim Murphy put out for us for... where she gave us each a piece of fabric. So these are the colors that I'm going to be using in the book or on the journal. This is just a heavier, I don't even know what this is. It might even say on here, polyester nylon rayon. So I'm using that, maybe a piece of that today. Another piece of that same piled fabric here. It's got the label on it. Again, it says viscose and polyester. Interesting. But again, it's just a heavier weight of fabric. And if you find these sample books at the thrift shops, or maybe you know somebody in the upholstery business, they're great to use for this kind of purpose. I also have a piece of a faux velvet. Again, it's not the real thing, but it feels nice like a velvet. And then I do have a piece of this royal blue velvet. Now, the thing with working with these type of piled fabrics is that you get a lot of bits and pieces from the other colors. They do tend to stick, just like Velcro almost. And I'll show you a trick that I use. And you may adapt this yourself for other purposes as well. These are wine labels that are sticky on one side, and they are super sticky. But if I use them in my art, I usually back them onto paper, and I can't sew through them. So I either have to glue it because the sewing machine gets really gummed up very easily with these kind of labels. So I take these labels. If I know I'm just going to be gluing them to paper anyway, I can just put glue on them after. But I use them to take all of the grunge off of my velvet or any little bits and pieces of material from other colors. So you can see what it is or how much I've taken off on the back of this. Now you can use old stickers. You can use labels. I actually keep a few of these in my purse if I'm wearing something that is going to get, you know, because I have cats. And so I know every outfit should have a cat hair on it. You know, that's the rule. But sometimes when you're wearing black, I have a white cat that jumps on me, or I can just seem to walk through the air and his hairs will stick to me. So I always carry a few of these in my purse to just do this and take it off of my clothing, because it'll always show up when you least expect it. And it's a great way to clean off your clothes. But I can still use it as a label. I just have to apply glue to it and glue right down to the paper. But I can still use it if I want to, or, you know, discard it. I have quite a few of these. But yes, this is just my method of cleaning off this velvet. So in order to make my flowers, you need a few basic things. You need your material, your scissors. You need some needles, and I always like to thread 2 or 3 ahead of time when I'm making flowers. It just makes it easy to go from one needle to the next. I don't make them too long, but I do double the thread and knot it at the end. And so on my pin cushion here, I have 3 ready to go. So you need a backup of more thread, and you need some beads. Now the beads will depend on what size of flower you're going to make. For this purpose, I'm just using a 4mm acrylic bead. Now the one thing I do say is, when you choose the beads that you're going to use on your project, always be sure to make sure that your needle will go through them. Because nothing like halfway through making your flower and you want to add the beads on and the needle doesn't go through your beads. So just double check that before you get started. This way you won't be disappointed. And that's pretty much all we need to get going. So when I do a thumbnail flower, it can be any size of strip, depending on the size of flower I want to make. So I'm going to cut about a 1.5 inch strip of this blue velvet. I probably should have went the other way, but I'm trying to keep the length on this because I want some of the length for another project. There's no measurements. You just hold it with your thumb, and we're going to make 5 petals. So you hold it with your thumb, and you take your scissors and you go around your thumb. Now, however wide around your thumb you go, that's how big your petal is going to be. So in this case, I'm going 1/4 inch around my thumb, but I'm going to stop about 1/4 inch along the strip here. But there's my thumb. So now I'm just going to move my thumb over and again round the edges, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm going around, and I'm going to stop at about 1/4 inch. Petal number 2 is done. Now we're going on to 3. And I say no measurements. I mean, you can sort of judge, like this one's a little fatter, that one's a little smaller. It's not that big of a deal. And you can sort of judge because you can make them right up to your thumb. But the thing is that you're holding the piece and you're just measuring around your thumb. You can make great big loops. You can make a 2 inch wide flower if you want. And am I on my 5th? Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is where we're going. So now I can cut this right off. And then I have enough to make a smaller one. Because this isn't going, you can see it's shorter. So this one I can make a little bit smaller and go a little closer to my thumb. And first petal. Now sometimes you can't get 2 out of the same strip, or sometimes you can get 4, but it doesn't hurt to make a slightly smaller one. These are very addicting flowers. They turn out so pretty. And there's really nothing to them. Oop, I should have went a little further there. And I think I can squeeze the 5 out of here. So you see, it's not you don't need to be caught up in measuring every little thing and making sure everything is exactly the same, because they're going to turn out beautiful. Just give yourself that edge along here that isn't cut, because that's where we're going to be doing the sewing. And you can see the flower petals aren't all the same. If you looked at a real flower, you would find out that they're not all perfectly the same. And same with this one. Now this one's got a couple of bigger ones and a little small one and a skinny one, but as long as you leave that little strip there, it'll be fine to work with. So then taking your needle and thread, now you know me, I keep all these little scraps. You've seen what I've done, and we'll go over that in a second again too. So I'm going to make the big one first, and taking my needle and thread. And the first thing I do is start at one end by just pushing my needle through, and I wrap it around once. And that just secures it to the end so that you know it's not going anywhere. And then, as I've always told you, Friday night sewing special, and I'll repeat it again why. I'm just going to go in and out. This is how I used to hem my jeans on Friday night when I bought a new pair of jeans and I was going out. And I would just do this stitch through my jeans. This is the last time I'll tell this story. After that, the newbies can go back and read it. But yeah, I would do this in and out stitch, and it didn't matter what color thread I used. And my mother used to say, I can see the stitches, and I'd say, nobody can see them. Nobody can see them when I'm dancing. And that was my big thing when I was a kid. We would go to the school dances or whatever, and yeah, I'd have to hem my new jeans. So this is the kind of stitch I used to do. And probably with the same color thread, probably a white thread running along the edge of my jeans. But I didn't care as long as they weren't dragging on the ground, because I was short, and I'm still short, but I was short, and most of my jeans were way too long for me, so I would just hem them quickly. And that's what you're doing with your needle and thread here. You're just going in and out till you get to the other end. Okay, so I'm at the end here, and just make sure your thread doesn't get caught on your petals, because then it'll slow you down. You'll have to do some picking at it. Okay, so now that I've got my petals all thread, you can see that just in and out from one end to the other. I'm just going to gently start to pull it as tight as I can. Now you want to do it gently because you don't want to break the thread and have to start all over again. So once I've got it pretty tight, I'm going to take my thread and knot it right away. Now everybody has their method of knotting. I think I've told you that this is the one I use and always use. So there is a knot in here, so my flower petals aren't going to ungather. And so now I go back and find the original starting point, and I just take my needle and thread is still attached, and I just bring it through that original starting point. Whether it's from back to front or front to back, it really doesn't matter, because now I'm going to overlap it a little bit on that other petal and go back down into it. And pull it tight. Now this is what the flower looks like on the one side. And on the other side, I'm just going to kind of flatten it down a little bit. I've got my thread coming through on this side, and I'm just going to go back and forth a couple of times to make sure that hole is closed. And the reason I do that is some fabrics are so thick and so stiff that you're actually left with a little hole in the center that you could probably stick your finger in. But I don't do any fancy stitching. I just go back and forth through the pile of gathers. A couple of times. Just to hold it, or to close up that little hole so that your beads don't fall through it. And you might see a couple of the threads on the other side, but that's okay. We're going to cover it with beads now. So once you've kind of gathered up so there isn't a hole, then I go through the back one more time up to the front, and I start feeding on my beads one at a time and stitching them on. Just a note, I never just open the bag and pour beads out because they always end up on the floor. So having just a few in a little tray or a dish. So I've got the one bead on here, and I'm just going to go back to the back. Now, if you're not the type of person that doesn't like this kind of thing to sew, you can also just put some glue in the center and glue your beads down. But if you're into this kind of sewing, there is kind of like a little reward in glue or stitching all these beads on. And I put anywhere from 5 to 7, sometimes 9 beads to make a nice little beaded cluster in the middle. And this just covers up your threads or your the ends of your flower. I pick the beads up with my needle because they're pretty small. And then just in and out, back and forth until you've got, oh, I didn't come through here. Sorry. Until you have all your beads on. So it'll just take me a few minutes. You'll just have to bear with me. I'm going to try to do a second video today as well on another project. I'll tell you about that more in a second. Now, this is only one method of making these velvet millinery style of flowers, but there are many different ones that we can make. And, you know, as we go along, we will get more advanced. As you're making more of these kinds of flowers, we will have lots of fun making different things. And I'm just going to add one more. You can also add buttons in the center or jewelry. I've shown you with different broken earrings and stuff to add in the center, or charms, whatever you have. Okay, so 3, 6, yeah, this one has 7 beads in the center. So all I'm going to do is knot this on the back, and I could go on to making another one, which I'll do with this white. You know, I'm double knotting it just because. And there's my first flower. Now you can do a little bit of shaping, and again, you can take your sticky label. If there's any bits and pieces on here, you can pull them off. If you have material that frays a little bit, it looks nice too. Then it's nice and shabby on your piece. It looks like it's an older vintage flower, but isn't that just so pretty and so simple? So going back to this fabric, now it has this sticky paper on the back, and sometimes it peels off really nicely, and sometimes it is so aggravating because it doesn't peel off. So you are left with, like, by the time I take off that side and that side, that's what I'm left with. But these pieces here, I'm just going to cut it off. I'm not even going to try, although I know that some of them you can get it off. These pieces here that are paper backed, they're already ready to make a pocket. They're already ready to start clustering and adding things onto it. And you can use them right in your journals. And I don't know. I'm pretty sure you could stitch around these because I don't think it's sticky. I think it's like a glue, but you know, always try, of course. Or you can just glue it down because it is paper on the back, so it would take to your Fabri-Tac or your acetate glues very nicely. And it's already got this nice finished edge, so this is ready to use on a project. So you can make a pocket, you can make a tuck spot, you can make a cluster. You can also take this piece and put it through your die cutting machines. If you have a Big Kick or a Sizzix and you have the thicker dies, you can put this through and it cuts really, really nicely. So I always keep those, and same with the little strips at the other end if you have those too. I keep them aside. And you know, I use all this stuff. So there are going to be some clusters coming today with this. And this was attached to another color that had green on it, so I'd have to trim that off a little bit. But going back to this piece, I'm going to make another thumbnail flower, and you can see I've gathered all kinds of blue bits from this flower. And again, I will just take my sticker tape and just clean it off that way. Okay, so I want to make a bigger one because the project I'm working on, I want to have bigger flowers. So this is about 1.5 inches again, and I'm just going to go around my thumb, stopping at about 1/4 inch from the edge. And that's number 2. Number 3. Now this one's going to be a really big one. 4. And 5. Cut the ends off. Sorry to make you wait while I tie a knot, but... And then just going through the first petal at the bottom. Oop. I'm in a hurry, right? Stop hurrying. There we go. And then once around just to secure it so it doesn't undo on you. And then in and out. All the way to the end. Now you can make these very, very tiny, and I do. I make them the size of my thumbnail, small. But once you have the general idea of how to go around your thumb as you're cutting, you can make them smaller. I mean, you could take this shape and draw it out for yourself if you really want to, but I like to be able to do these wherever. I don't want to have to sit and measure. You know, I say this all the time. You could do this in front of the TV, which you could. I don't, but you could. So it's nice to not have to take a ton of materials with you to sit down and make these in, you know, just a few minutes here or there. You could even have a basket of strips cut and just have your scissors, needle, and thread sitting in there, and then put them together. Oh, sorry, my dog's going to do a little bit of a barking thing. I think Tom's taking him for a walk, so he's getting excited. Okay, I've got to the end here. But I was saying that you could have a basket full of these to work on, you know, here or there. You could have them sitting beside the computer and just work on a few while you're looking at a YouTube video. Sorry about highway. Okay, so I've pulled this nice and tight, slowly without pulling too hard so that I don't break my thread, and I'm going to tie a knot right away. Now we have, wasn't the greatest knot, there we go. There we go. Okay, so we have made these flat because we're putting them on flat projects. But when you're doing them with as millinery flowers, a lot of times they will add stems in here and stamen instead of the beads. But they will add beads too, but they'll make them more upright and wire them so that they'll end up looking more like this. Like a flower. Like, well, not that this doesn't look like a flower. But they'll have them the petals upright more, and they'll wire them around a wire so that they can make a bouquet. And that is something that we'll get into a little later on as well. But for now, for making the flowers for your journal covers or for tags or whatever, we're just doing them flat. And so now that I've got this stitched, I'm going to just go through the first couple of spots there on the first petal. And this thread has gotten a little twisted on me, so I'm just fixing it here as I go. There we go. And then just overlap it a little bit. Oh, this thread is knotting up on me here. Sorry for this, but now you know what can happen. And I'll try that one more time to overlap on there. Being careful not to poke myself because this is a white flower or cream colored. And then I'm going to turn it over because this one you can actually see a little bit of the hole there. I don't know if you can see where my needle is. So I'm turning it over flat on the table and just going back and forth through the hole. Just to close it up. You could also put a spot of glue there and hold it closed, but that just takes longer. And you've got your needle and thread still attached anyway because you're going to be putting your beads on. So I just as soon go back and forth. Once you've got the hole closed up, push it through to the front side and add your beads. Now, this will just be a few seconds and I will have the beads added on. There are other ways to add beads, but again, I will show you that in new flowers that we make. I have a couple of favorites that will come up. Now I'm probably going to be switching this up again and doing things on trims because I don't want you to be bored. I'm showing you different ways to embellish your journals with the trims and with doing dangles and tassels, as well as making flowers and embellishments that would adorn your books. So there's 3 series on the go. And there are possibilities of some other ones that I have planned as well. So now I haven't been doing this in any kind of a row. There is no rhyme or reason. I just put them in and fill in the blanks after. Just going in and out, adding my beads to the center. And like I said, you can use buttons, you can use jewelry bits, earring parts. And you can make it as full as you like. You can make different colored beads or whatever. But there's that one done. So when you have flowers, the next thing you need to have to go with your flowers is leaves. And we're going to make one style of leaf today that is super easy to make to go with these. Now I have this, I've been working on this scarf. This was it's a very silky, translucent kind of, you can see through it, right? But it's kind of a mossy green color. And it's just lovely for making leaves. And not only do I use this one, but I'm not going to use it today, but I'll just show you another scarf here. This one is a little bit more glittery. So this green would make some lovely leaves as well. And so, and they don't necessarily have to be green. It depends on what I'm making. Sometimes I make them in colors to match. Like I might use a light blue to match with this one. So it just depends on what I'm working on. But for my friendship journal, I'm working in the colors of kind of golds and blues and a little bit of cream and a little bit of yellow. Again, I don't measure. I just fold this in half. Now these circles are probably about 4 inches. And there's 4 layers here. I'm just going to make it as round as I can make it. And you know I keep all these little bits. And we'll go over that at the end of how to make a snippet roll with them. And I'll show you some of the ones I did the other day. Oh, my needle is in there. Okay, so this is as round as going to get. Can you see it? It's not perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm going to take it and I'm going to fold it in half, like that. And then I'm going to fold it again into quarters. Now I'm going to start where the 2 folds meet. Does that make sense? I've folded it in half, and then I'm folding it into quarters. So it looks like this. Now it is silky material, so you do have to kind of hang on to it a little bit. But where this open end is, I hope you can see that. Open, fold it in 4s. So this is the open side that I'm starting with first. I'm going to take my needle and thread, going as close to the edge as I can, hoping to catch all 4 layers because there's 4 layers on there. And my thread's gone wonky on me. I made my threads too long for today. Okay, going back through it again. Just to catch the end. And it's going to slip and slide, and that's okay. And then just go very close, in and out stitching, hoping to catch all 4 along the edge. Till you get to the other end. Pull your thread carefully so it doesn't get caught up on you like mine just did. Here we go. Pulling my thread till I get to the end, and I have a leaf. Now once I've pulled it nice and tight, I don't worry about this scrunchy ugly bit at the end here. I go back and forth, hoping I don't knot my thread again. I hope this isn't too boring, but just back and forth a few times. And this is the bottom of the leaf, so you're not going to see this ugliness afterwards. And then I tie it in a knot. And I usually make 1 or 2 leaves for each flower. So I'm going to make one more. How's my time? Oh, we're getting high there, are we? Yes. Okay, so one more flower. Here it goes. Now, it doesn't always line up perfectly. That's okay. Catching the beginning by knotting it first and then in and out. To the end. Pull tight and holding it together. I go back and forth through the same pile, back and forth. And then knot it. So again, if you have a pile of these circles already cut out, you can sit and do leaves. And here we go. Sorry about the delay in my thread here. I should have, like I said, I should have cut them shorter. Okay, so that's ready to go. Now, the thing is you say, well, what does all this look like when it's put together? So I'm going to show you my quick little version of what it looks like all put together. If you can imagine, this is going to be one of my book covers. I show this in my last video. Okay, so this is going to be the cover on one of my books. Now, I'm not necessarily going to use these flowers like this, and I did make a few while I was waiting for you to join me. So I have a few more flowers here in the different colors that I made. So I can add my flowers onto my project. Actually, you know what? I'm going to add some lace here. I had this lace sitting here. You could add lace, you could add a piece of a doily, some nice sheer lace fabric, or any kind of trim that you want as the base. You don't have to, but I'm just doing it for the sake of this video. And I'm going to start with the blue flower and add this cream one. And then I like this orange one here. Tuck that underneath. And then maybe this blue one here. And this one down here. And let's tuck this one. So these were all the fabrics that I showed you that I was working with. So let's go back to the leaves. Can you see all that? Good. Okay, so you would tuck one under one flower. Maybe one under this flower. Now these will all have to either be glued or stitched down to your cover. And so yes, it is a bit of work to do all this, to put it all together, but it's certainly doable. And as I said, I like to add at least one, maybe two leaves to each of the flowers. So once you've got it sort of placed, you can lift this up and put a dot of glue underneath and then just rearrange your flowers as you go along. So I'm going to add this one under here. And that's a good start to your cover. It may be a little bit excessive actually for this cover. I might not use quite as many, and I may not use all of these colors. But I'm just giving you ideas of what you can do to enhance your pieces. Now, if you made the other flowers with me, the yo-yos, you could add in a couple of yo-yos because we made those. You could add some smaller ones, and this yo-yo doesn't have a pearl center, so I'm going to add one on there. I've got a couple more small flowers here that I can tuck in. I can add, this is that cream colored flower I made with the rough edges. I can tuck that underneath here. And just add in any little bits of color or pieces that I want to complement these other flowers that I made. So in no time at all, you have this beautiful, I mean, this is excessive now, but you have this beautiful cover all made with handmade flowers. And yes, they all do have to be stitched on. You could add in some broken jewelry to enhance it further, or into the centers of your flowers. You could add in some pearls. Like I've got this strand of pearls here. I'm just going to cut a few pieces, so I'm going to probably lose a few along the way, but you could manually stitch on a handful of pearls. Here and there through your piece. You don't have to add that many. It just depends on what kind of look you want to have to go with it. So there's lots of simple ways to adorn this even further, and we could go further, but this is right now this is way too much. I would never put this much, but this is just to show you some different ideas of what you can do. And I hope this was a simple flower for you to make. I hope you'll give it a try and see how you like it, and continue to follow my channel with the different flowers that we're going to be making. Again, I'm trimming this down now so that it's not so bulky and you can see a little bit more. I probably wouldn't add even that one at the end. I think I would just stop right about there at the most. And again, you can see how, I'm going to lose my beads here, how pretty this can look just with a simple few flowers. And this is great to adorn clothing. It's great to adorn a hat. But for the sake of clothing, I might stitch it onto something that can be removed off of the clothing, like on a collar or something, so that you're not trying to put this through the wash when you're washing the garment. Because these are unfinished flowers as far as the edges, because we are just manually cutting them. But there are some flowers that we're going to make that are more finished, sort of like this leaf, where the edges are finished, and then those you can put through the wash. Although I'm always leery about doing that, but there you go. That's what it looks like. Now, just a quick, I've only got a couple minutes here, so just a quick thing about making snippets. I showed you in the last one what I do with the leftover materials. So I've got some of this gold, and I don't throw any of these pieces out, and I will just add them down. I've got a bit of this yellow. And some of these blue pieces. And that's a little bit big, but I'm going to just... This is white on white. Okay, I can add some of this. And what I do is I continue to build on here. And I use every single bit of it. It's almost like an obsession to me to do this, but I just don't like to see it go to waste. And you just go on until you get a full collection, and then I pin them all together. Sorry, I'm just looking for little bits of these colors that are still on my table. And once you've got them all together, I pin them down, and I stitch them 2 or 3 times back and forth. And then I let them sit and add other things as I feel I want to use them. Now, it looks ugly right now. This was one that I didn't quite get 3 or 5 thumbs out of here. It looks ugly right now, but once you start adding more things to it, it gets prettier. Like I can add a piece of lace. And maybe some more lace. I'm thinking this lace flower here. And this is just a small piece, but it has all the colors that I'm working on. Add a little bit more blue there. A little bit more of that. And a piece of that. So now this can become a belly band stitched together, which I'm going to do because I'm going to use this. And I can further embellish it by adding, you know, clusters of beads, or I can add flowers, whatever I want to this to create my little collage of snippets. So it's just another way to use up all of those little scrappy bits. And I use every single bit before I'm done. All of this gets used up. And just to show you, after I did my last video, and you have to go back and watch that last video. These aren't finished yet, but they're on my desk for things to finish. So I have these flowers that I'm going to be adding to them. Here's the first one, and again, it's all the little bits that were left over after I cut out my circles. And then I laid lace over top, just like I did with this one. This is now waiting for me to either add some color to it or embellish it with buttons and pearls or charms, whatever I want to use it for. This one I went a little bit further, and I added those little embellishing flowers. They're little fabric. It's just kind of a string. They're pretty grungy looking, so I figured they're nice on here because it is kind of a shabby chic look. So again, I will go back and add some pearls, some buttons, different things like charms, broken jewelry, just to enhance this. But I'm not going to do it now. I let them sit until I actually need one of these, and then I decide on what colors I'm going to use to enhance it. And this third one, I didn't have a lot of the pink, so I used a little bit of the pink that was there. And I can go back and add some more pink flowers and really enhance on the pink if that's something I want to do. But, you know, it may be burgundy might be the focus of the next thing I'm working on. But these can be used as little pieces. Oops, out of camera there. Little pieces or as a whole, or making belly bands and pockets. So there's lots of use for all those scraps. And this was all the scraps off my table. But I went one step further. And this big long one has all the really tiny little scraps. You know these ones? That's what this whole thing is. And it's just going to sit like this. And I used like the striped ones. And it's going to sit like this until I have a project that I'm working on. I can stain this or paint over top of it, dye it, whatever. And then I had a little bit of colored stuff left on my table, so I put it on this one. And because these are long strip pieces, I didn't really want them on this pink one. So I just carried on with this. But you can see what a difference it makes with a little bit of color afterwards too that's added on. So they look ugly. They look so ugly when you're putting together. You're thinking, oh my goodness, what am I making? This is just a mess. But once you get going and you just keep adding and adding stuff to it, and I just do 3 rows of stitching on the back, and you start adding things to it, and it gets amazing at how cute they look. And they're a lot of fun, simple, and it uses up all these little bits and pieces that are on your table. I don't have anything left over when I'm done. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you will continue to watch these series and maybe participate in them. And I challenge any YouTuber out there, if you're watching and you have a YouTube channel, why not make some and then link back to me. Let's collaborate together. So the challenge is out there for all of you. And stay tuned. I do have, I'm going to try and fit in Mass Monday right after this. So I'm going to have 2 videos out today because this was supposed to be my Sunday tutorial. And I have a Mass Monday right after this. So you know, there's lots to watch. And the third video that I will try to put out either today or tomorrow is to show you my booth at the flea market that I have. And I had 1 booth at the market and I just expanded to 2. So I took a picture of the original market or original booth, and I'm ready to upload that. And then I will show you the full booth once I've filled it up again for the two booths together. So that you know that I'm busy off camera as well as on YouTube. And anyway, I'm going to cut this short. So I thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I wish you a very creative day and a creative week. And for those of you in the United States, a happy Independence Day. Have fun. See you soon. Bye for now.